everyone, I'm Liz. I major in TESOL in Western University. Today, I want to talk about the culturally responsive teaching. Before I talk about the detailed theory, I want to share a story with you guys. Lisa is a white teacher and Tony is an African American student. One day, in a handicraft class, everyone stood up to make their artifacts. When the class came to the end, Tony got Lisa's attention and said, "Tony, would you like to take your seat?" Tony said no and continued to make his artifact. Lisa felt defensive and angry, so she sent Tony to the principal's office. However, Tony was surprised, embarrassed, and afraid because he didn't know what he did wrong with. Tony saw Lisa wouldn't let him choose. Actually, Lisa was not asking Tony questions, but just provided an indirect directive to him. In white culture, using indirect directives is a normal way to communicate with others. Therefore, she believed that Tony knew she was giving a directive and just refused to obey it. She interpreted his behavior as defiant. However, in Tony's mind, he is used to receiving a directive, so he believed that he just answered the question that Lisa asked. This is a classic example of cross-cultural miscommunication. This accident caused by three reasons. Firstly, as a white teacher, Lisa didn't know her own cultural identity and also didn't know how her own culture shapes herself. Secondly, she was not familiar with Tony's culture, so she even didn't try to understand the reason behind Tony's action. Thirdly, because she was unfamiliar with both her own culture and Tony's culture, she was not able to find the differences or the gap between these two cultures at all, and she used her own culture to interpret Tony's behavior. This misinterpretation is the implicit bias towards Tony. For Lisa, she is an authority figure in the classroom and she has the power to penalize her students. However, for Tony, he did not do anything wrong. He tried his best to respect his teacher and answer the teacher's question, but he still had to be punished. After this event, Tony might be afraid of answering the teacher's question and interacting with Lisa, since he doesn't know what is wrong and what is right. Therefore, the best choice for him is keep silent. Nevertheless, if Lisa is still unwilling to learn Tony's culture and widen her interpretation towards Tony's action, keep silent would deepen her misunderstanding against Tony. This misunderstanding between them would create a substantial vicious cycle, which could also negatively influence Tony's study in the future. As the story taught us, in the diversity culture classroom, teachers have to work thoroughly to uncover implicit bias and prepare to work culturally and linguistically with students. In order to fill the gap, instructors have to do the preparations. First of all, they should identify their cultural frame of reference. Marshall in 2002 mentioned that the first step for the teacher to successfully work with diverse students is to accept and understand the students as cultural beings. Secondly, teachers should map their cultural reference points, including what drives you, what shapes your worldview, what influences your teaching, and so on. Thirdly, teachers should widen their interpretation aperture. If teachers interpreted students' actions by solely using their frames, it will take the risk of misinterpreting students' intention. Marshall suggests teachers widen their interpretation through three steps, including description, interpretation, and evaluation. The description is the first step, which means that teachers should describe what you see in the brain. The second step is the interpretation, which requires teachers interpret their students' situation. The last step is evaluation, which asks teachers to assign positive or negative significance to the action based on the initial interpretation. Lastly, teachers should practice emotional self-management and identify their emotional triggers. Now, I want to share my personal experience when I was a third grade girl. I had a foreign teacher who had just come to China in a short time. One day, in his English class, he asked all class members to do an animal roleplay activity. My classmates played characters like cat, dog, and fish. However, when it turned to me, the foreign instructor asked me to play a hen. I felt embarrassed at that time, and every classmate laughed at me since the hen in Chinese means a whore. However, my foreigner teacher did not know this meaning. He ignored my embarrassment and didn't even try to ask me why. He insisted to let me play a hen. After this event, I quite refused to participate in the activities of his class for a long time. However, if this teacher had tried to get familiar with Chinese culture before he conducted his class or to be mindful, he will let me change my role when I felt unhappy. If it is so, since it will be totally different. After I finished my TESOL program, I will come back to China to be an English instructor. In China, we seldom confront the issues of racism in the classroom, and this kind of cultural diversity exists few among the students. However, as all the students come from different social level, different families, and individual differences must exist between them. Therefore, in my future career, I will aim to build a student-centered instruction and keep it open-minded to study from my students continuously. By this way, I could quickly know the need of my students' need and continuously fill the background gap between myself and my students. Eventually, I will enable them to comfortably immerse in the study. In conclusion, culturally responsive teacher requires teachers to be mindful and present to uncover implicit bias and prepare to work with culturally and linguistically diverse students by identifying on cultural frame of reference, widening on cultural aperture, and identifying on key triggers. Thank you for watching this video. Hope you enjoy.